it makes no logical sense whatsoever. To question as a necessary and compelling first step the authenticity of the Stratford man Shakespeare as a faked mask of a true playwright genius and author of the first folio, as long as at the same time you cannot give a convincing answer or idea about the survival of the most plausible singular candidate, Marlowe, with a coherent story of his subsequent life and his activities. That's a necessary second logical step. This missing necessary second logic autobiographical step, taken for granted, a literary Stratford genius never existed, must disclose the all-encompassing full artistic dimensions of the real and true contemporary dramatist and poet author genius of Hamlet, recognized as Marlowe, forced to remain concealed, disguised throughout his life. A precondition for any second step related question is the acceptance of a once deadly threatened Marlowe as the only true poet genius, Shakespeare, who survived by faking his death with the support of the crown, living and writing henceforth under multiple cover names. If you do not feel able to take this step, feel free to simply stop here, not answering question 1 to 7. First, is it conceivable at all that from a literary genius, pseudonymous Shakespeare, in reality Christopher Marlowe, in the late 16th century, virtually nothing was printed during his alleged life, his first 30 years, under his name, but only since after Marlowe's alleged death, 1593. Second, why no obvious contextual arguments are accepted that true Shakespeare, also known as Marlowe, already during his lifetime must have written, translated and published already under pseudonyms such as Breton, Chapman, Gauger, Puttenham, Shakespeare, Sylvester, Wither and others. Please click link above. You may select from 100 clickable online video contributions. Third, true Shakespeare, that is Marlowe, having survived. Where did he live? Where did he travel during his entire life? At what years he stayed in what countries? With which persons he communicated and corresponded with, etc., etc. Fourth, banished and exiled, true Shakespeare, also known as Marlowe, had to write under concealed and invented pen names, often trickily borrowed and modified from real subjects or objects. How many pseudonames beyond Shakespeare he used? Under how many incognito names he lived, such as Thomas Shelton, Toby Matthew, Ledoux, beyond his many literary pseudonyms. Fifth, mustn't Shakespeare as Marlowe, if identical with the true author of Hamlet, have left an abundant wealth of indirect biographical contextual traces throughout his long life till 1655, compared to the lifespan of the Stratford dummy with 52 years? Sixth, when and where did the only true universal poet genius, pseudonymous Shakespeare, alias Marlowe, eventually die? Seventh, are you aware that the total negation of a logical and plausible historical Marlo-Shakespeare fake conspiracy fatally prevented any research for plausible conclusive findings, proofs, evidences, contextual documents of the full life of a surviving universal genius under an inconceivable multiplicity of literary pen names?
In this respect, Ross Barber, an influential Marlowean scholar, dealt with one crucial aspect of those biographically related second-step questions. She pointed to undeniable, highly obvious contextual references in Shakespeare's plays with obsessive themes of Marlowe's fatal biographical destiny never recognized, resonating, for instance, in Marlowe's slander and false accusations, as in Much Ado, Othello, Measure for Measure, in the sonnets, like number 66, 111, 150, resonating in Marlowe's life situation of exile and banishment, which Ross Barber verified, believe it or not, in 22 characters of 19 Shakespeare plays. So also resonating in Marlowe's life narrative, that is, assumed dead, faked death, but alive, which can be shown, believe it or not, in 33 characters of 18 Shakespeare plays.
The insurmountable obstacle for every academic Shakespeare expert, Marlowe could not have been deceased and being alive at the same time. Resurrection is possible in religious idols like Christ, but not in irreligious like Christopher.
The disastrous failure to reach a solution for the Shakespeare authorship resulted ultimately from the fact that from the beginning, literary Academe abandoned any imaginability of an biographical contextuality. Why? Academe could never ever imagine that the Shakespeare authorship enigma was a historical conspiratory rescue action for the literary and universal genius Marlowe, and by no means only orchestrated with a singular pen name Shakespeare by the genius himself, but with an inconceivable multiplicity of pen names. Believe it or not.
The auto-biographical contextual incorporation of Marlowe's destiny into Shakespeare's plays unfortunately blocked all notions and possibilities of thinking that also other contemporary author pseudonyms belonged to Marlowe. That means Shakespeare was by no means the sole literary pen name of the poetic genius Christopher Marlowe. An additional significant aside. The acceptance of the multi-pseudonymity paradigm could enable and help the world community in the future to abandon the far-fetched, rather devious and bizarre idea of a Shakespeare collaboration or cooperation with so many contemporary authors, the so-called group theory. The arguments for the singular author multi-pseudonymity thesis SAMP of the true Shakespeare Marlowe are irrefutable and too robust to be easily destroyed, especially because of their mighty coherent contextuality. The arguments for SAMP have been compiled in recent years in a series of YouTube videos. See the following examples, click link above.